Do you feel like renting is just throwing away money? Well, in this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly how to calculate whether buying a home or renting is the right decision with your money. This week's podcast episode was all about buying versus renting, and there is a ton of great research contained within that podcast episode, so make sure you go check it out and let me know what you think about it. But today's video is talking specifically about the financial side of this very big decision, whether you buy or rent. I really want to tackle this head on because so many people say that renting is just throwing your money away, or there's this myth that you're just paying someone else's mortgage and that you have to buy a home in order to build equity and save money. So let's bust all of those myths today and walk you through exactly how to calculate whether buying or renting is going to be financially advantageous for you, because the money part of this decision does matter. It's something that we can't overlook. And we covered a whole lot more beyond the financial ramifications in this week's podcast episode, but this video is going to be exclusive to the financial side of the decision. So I want to show you today how to run this calculation. So here on screen, I'm going to be showing the NerdWallet buy versus rent calculator that they have on their website. And of course, it's linked down below if you want to go check it out. But I'm going to walk through several different scenarios going on with this calculator. So this first scenario we're going to walk through here shows a monthly rent of $1,650, $18 per month in renter's insurance, and a 3.5% yearly increase to rent. The buying side of this decision has a $320,000 price tag with a 5% down payment in this scenario with a 30-year mortgage and a 7% interest rate. Now, a couple things to add on here. We're going to consider this person is filing their taxes single because that does play some factor in it. And we're going to assume they have an annual rate of return on their investments at 5.5%. Because the real thing here, it's all about renting and investing the difference, or buying and the opportunity cost of not being able to invest because of the higher cost up front. So if we turn our attention to the chart over here on the right-hand side, you'll see it starts out saying if you stay here 3 years or less, renting is going to be cheaper. And you'll notice this green line crosses the blue line at 11 years. At 11 years, that's where it flip-flops over to buying costing less. And that's the key thing here to note. This chart is amazing, and it's going to show you exactly at what point it becomes cheaper to buy or if it's cheaper to rent forever. And I'll show you that here in a later scenario, but let's move on to scenario 2. So here in this second scenario, we have monthly rent of $2,100 with $25 per month in renter's insurance, 4% annual rent increase. The home they're looking at is $385,000 with a 10% down payment, a 30-year mortgage, and a 6.75% interest rate. In this scenario, we're going to be considering a married couple who is filing joint on their taxes, and we're assuming an annual rate of return of 7% over this calculation. So again, looking here in the short term, it's cheaper to rent. And this just goes to show if you're looking to stay somewhere for a short period of time, it's going to be a better idea to rent versus buying in the long term. But this scenario flip-flops to being cheaper to buy after just 9 years. And really one of the main things driving this is their higher down payment. They're putting down more in this scenario than our last scenario was at 5% of the purchase price. Even though their annual rate of return is higher, them putting down more up front allows for that cost to become better a little bit sooner. And I'm going to show you here in the next scenario what happens if we invest a little bit more aggressively. So here in this last scenario, we're playing around with the numbers of rent at $1,850 per month, renter's insurance at $20 per month, with a rental increase of 3% per year. The home purchase price this person is looking at is $360,000 with a down payment of 20%. So they're even putting down more as a down payment. A loan term of 30 years and an interest rate of 6.5%. So their interest rate is less and they're putting down more. Yet, if we look at the chart here, renting will always cost less. Even at the end of 30 years, it's still cheaper for them to rent. Now, why is that? That's because in this scenario, we're assuming an annual rate of return of 9%. That's because he's being more aggressive with his investments, and that is the real kicker here that can make renting a better financial option. Now, if he were to say get a 6% annual rate of return, you see buying becomes the better option much sooner. After just 6 years, it is cheaper per month to buy a home instead of rent. It all comes down to investing. And if you're not investing anything, then yeah, buying a home can be a lot better of an option. So let's say you're only investing, so to speak, is in just a high yield savings account at about 3%. If that is your only savings and you're only earning 3% from your high yield savings account, it is very quick for the home purchase to become a lot cheaper. After just about 4.5, 5 years, it's cheaper to buy instead of rent. It all matters where you invest that difference and the opportunity cost of putting your money into a home instead of putting it into the market. So now after we've gone through those scenarios, was there anything that surprised you? Did it make sense the way those numbers worked out? When you invest more or get a more aggressive rate of return, does that surprise you that renting is always cheaper? Why is it cheaper to rent with that higher rate of return? Well, like I said, it's that opportunity cost of your money. If your opportunity cost is being saved in your home equity instead of the market, you may be earning a lower rate of return by saving in your home. That's why I think it's time to get rid of the idea of paying someone else's mortgage. You could actually be throwing money away paying off your own mortgage instead of being aggressively invested. You have to make sure to plug in your numbers and be realistic with the financial ramifications of the decision. It may be cheaper to rent. So your assignment from today's video is to go on to nerdwallet.com and use their buy versus rent calculator and plug in your own numbers to see whether it's a better decision to buy a home or continue to rent or vice versa. While of course there is more to this big decision than just the math that this calculator that I showed you today is going to help you see should absolutely play a role in your decision. The numbers should help guide you in one direction or the other. You can't just ignore the numbers if they point you strongly in one way or another. But I really hope you enjoyed today's video showing a buy versus rent calculator to help you make a decision on which one's better for you financially. Because the age-old myth that we have to buy a house just to build equity is a lie. You can still rent and continue to build equity with investing. Building equity in something you invest in on your own beside your house is also a great way to build wealth. Because if all of your equity and your investments lie in your house, then you have to sell your house in order to get access to that money. So you really have to consider, where do you want to build wealth? But let me know what you thought about today's video. Were you swayed one way or the other? Does this help you see the decision in a little bit of a different light now that you can consider the financial ramifications? And be sure to go check out this week's podcast episode to get more insight on the other decision factors that go into such a large decision to buy a home or to continue to rent, because it may be better for your money, but there may be more to it than that. Because if money was just math, the supercomputers out there that we have in our pocket would have it all figured out. So there's more to money than just math. If you want some help making this decision or learning how to actually invest if you decide to continue renting, well, there's a link at the top of the description down below that you can click on to schedule a free chat with me, and I would love to help get you on the path to figure out which decision is the right one for you. But thank you for watching today's video. I'm your financial planner, Skylar Fleming, and have a great week.